You noticed something weird. The energy drink you used to grab for $4 is now 6. The grocery run that cost you $60 a year ago is now 80 something. Your rent went up. Your phone plan went up. The combo meal went up. And your paycheck? Roughly the same. Nobody stole your money. Nobody raised your taxes. But somehow you're poorer than you were 2 years ago. That's inflation. And most people have no idea how it actually works. They just know it sucks. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what inflation is, what causes it, what it does to your money while it just sits there, and what, if anything, you can do about it. Let's go. Let's start simple. Inflation is when the general price level of goods and services rises over time. That's it. Prices go up, a dollar buys less than it used to. Notice, it's not one thing getting more expensive, it's everything, broadly, across the economy. That energy drink going from $4 to $6? If it's just the drink, maybe the company raised its price. Maybe a supply chain issue. That's not necessarily inflation. But when the drink, the rent, the groceries, the gas, the haircut, and the gym membership all go up together, that's inflation. It's a system-wide thing, and that distinction matters a lot. The measurement economists use is called the Consumer Price Index, or CPI. Basically, researchers track a fixed basket of common goods, food, housing, transport, healthcare, and measure how much that basket's price changes month to month, year to year. When the CPI goes up 5% in a year, that means the basket costs 5% more than it did 12 months ago. That's your inflation rate. Now, why does any of this happen? Cause number one, too much money chasing too few things. Okay, here's the core logic. Imagine there are 10 energy drinks in the world, and there's $40 in the economy. Simple math. Each drink is worth about $4. Now, someone prints another $40 and hands it out. Now there's $80 in the economy. Still 10 drinks. Each drink is now worth $8. The number of drinks didn't change. The amount of money did. So prices went up. That's demand pull inflation. Too many dollars chasing the same number of goods. This is why economists pay close attention to how much money is circulating in the economy. More money without more stuff to buy means higher prices. Now there's a second flavor of this. Cause number two, it costs more to make stuff. Supply side inflation, also called cost push inflation. Imagine the factory that makes your energy drink suddenly has to pay twice as much for aluminum cans. Or shipping costs spike, or the ingredient for the drink's flavor gets more expensive. The factory has two choices: eat the cost and make less profit, or pass the cost to you. They pass it to you. $6 energy drink, not because there's extra money floating around, just because the cost of making it went up. This is why oil prices matter so much. Oil is an input for almost everything: manufacturing, shipping, agriculture. When oil prices rise, the cost of making almost everything rises. That ripples through the entire economy. Supply shocks, sudden disruptions of how much of something is available, are a classic cause of this kind of inflation. Cause number three, everyone expects it, so it happens. This one's the weird one. Inflation is partly self-fulfilling. Here's how. If workers expect prices to rise next year, they'll demand higher wages now. If businesses expect higher wages, they raise prices to cover those costs. Higher prices confirm the workers' expectations, so they demand even higher wages next year. It's a loop. And because expectations drive behavior, once inflation gets embedded in how people think and plan, it becomes really hard to stop. This is why central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the US, obsess over keeping inflation anchored. If people stop believing the Fed can control inflation, the expectation spiral takes over and things get bad fast. Your energy drink company raises prices partly because their costs went up and partly because they think you'll accept it because you expect everything to be more expensive anyway. And you do expect it. And you do accept it because you do expect it. Your savings are getting alive. Here is where it gets personal. Let's say you have $1,000 sitting in a basic savings account, earning basically nothing, maybe 0.5% of interest per year. Inflation is running at 4% per year. At the end of the year, you have $1,005 in that account. But things that used to cost $1,000 now cost $1,040. You didn't lose money on paper, but in real terms, in terms of what that money can actually buy, you lost about $35. Do that for 5 years in a row, and your purchasing power has quietly eroded in a way that feels invisible until it suddenly doesn't. That energy drink situation, that's not just a vibe. That's real mathematical loss. This is why the phrase cash is king is actually dangerous if you believe it too literally. Cash that just sits there loses value during inflationary periods, slowly, quietly, every single day. Nominal versus real. Now it's time to pay attention. 2 words you need to understand. Nominal means the actual number, the number on the price tag, the number on your paycheck. Real means adjusted for inflation. What the number actually means in terms of purchasing power. Let's say your boss gives you a 3% raise. Nominal wages went up 3%. Congratulations. Inflation that year is 5%. Your real wages went down 2%. You got a raise and you got poorer. This is one of the most important and underappreciated ideas in personal finance. Always ask, is this a real increase or just a nominal one? The energy drink is $6 now. Nominal price, $6. If your income hasn't kept pace with inflation, the real cost of that drink in terms of how many hours of work it represents is higher than it used to be. Nominal versus real. Remember it. Who actually wins during inflation? Here's something most people don't realize. Inflation doesn't screw everyone equally. There are winners. Debtors can come out ahead. Here's why. If you borrow $10,000 today and pay it back in 5 years, you're paying it back with dollars that are worth less. The nominal amount is the same. The real burden is smaller. This is especially true with fixed rate mortgages. You lock in a payment, inflation rises, your payment stays the same, and your real debt load shrinks over time. Government with large debts quietly benefit from moderate inflation for the same reason. Asset owners also tend to do okay. Stocks, real estate, and other tangible assets, not always but often, rise in price during inflationary periods, roughly keeping up with or beating inflation over time. Who loses? People holding cash, people on fixed incomes, people whose wages don't keep up. So inflation is also a redistributive force. It moves wealth from savers to debtors, from cash holders to asset holders. Your $6 energy drink is a symptom. The wealth shift happening underneath it is the actual story. Hyperinflation, when it all breaks. Normal inflation is annoying. Hyperinflation is civilization threatening. Hyperinflation is when prices rise so fast that money loses its usefulness almost entirely. Think, prices doubling every few days. Historical examples exist. Germany in the 1920s, Zimbabwe in the late 2000s, Venezuela more recently. In some of these cases, people were literally carrying cash in wheelbarrows to buy a loaf of bread. Not because they were rich, but because it took that many bills to buy anything. When inflation gets out of control, people stop trusting currency. They move to barter, or to foreign currencies, or to hard assets. The economy seizes up. The reason economists and central banks treat inflation, high inflation, as a genuine emergency isn't academic. It's because the historical track record of runaway inflation is genuinely ugly. Moderate, stable inflation, say around 2% per year, is actually the goal in most developed economies. Not zero, not high, around zero. Why not zero? Because a small amount of inflation encourages spending and investment. People don't sit on cash if they know it'll be slightly worth less next year. Deflation, when prices fall, sounds nice, but it has its own nasty problems. Consumers delay spending, companies lose revenue, layoffs happen. It can spiral into a recession. The $6 energy drink is fine. The $60 energy drink is a crisis. How the Fed tries to control it. In the US, the Federal Reserve, the central bank, is the main institution responsible for keeping inflation in check. Its primary tool? Interest rates. When inflation is high, the Fed raises interest rates. This makes borrowing more expensive. Mortgages, car loans, business loans, credit cards, people borrow less. They spend less. Demand falls, and prices stop rising as fast. When inflation is low and the economy is sluggish, the Fed lowers rates to encourage borrowing and spending. This is called monetary policy. It's a blunt instrument. Rate hikes affect everyone, including people who aren't doing anything inflationary, including businesses that need to borrow to grow, including home buyers who suddenly can't afford a mortgage. There's also fiscal policy. What governments spend and tax. If the government spends a lot without raising taxes, it can pump money into the economy and contribute to inflation. If it cuts spending or raises taxes, it does the opposite. Neither tool is precise. Both have delays. Rate changes take months to ripple through the economy. The Fed is essentially trying to steer an oil tanker with a delay on the steering wheel. Every time you see the news say the Fed raised rates by 0.25%, that's them trying to make your energy drink stop getting more expensive. Whether it works is another question. What you can actually do. You can't control inflation, but you're not completely powerless. A few things that actually matter. Don't hold excess cash long term. Cash sitting in a low yield account loses value during inflation. That's not opinion, it's math. High yield savings accounts help a bit. In high inflation environments, they often lag behind. Understand real returns on investment. When someone says an investment returns 7%, you need to subtract inflation to get the real return. If inflation is 4%, your real return was 3%. That matters when evaluating options. Fixed rate debt is your friend in inflationary periods. If you have a fixed rate loan, your real debt burden is decreasing every year inflation runs. This is one of the few actual advantages regular people get from inflation. Your wage is negotiable and you should negotiate it. If your company gives 2% raises and inflation is 4%, you're getting a pay cut. Know this. Use it in conversations. Cost of living isn't just a phrase. It's a real number you can look up. And diversification matters. Stocks, real estate, inflation-protected bonds like TIPS, Treasury inflation-protected securities. Different assets respond differently to inflation. No one asset is a guaranteed hedge, but spreading exposure is smarter than holding cash and hoping. None of this is exciting, but understanding what's happening to your money is the first step to not losing it silently. All right, here's everything in a rapid recap. Inflation is when the general price rises over time. Your dollar buys less. Inflation is when the general price level rises over time. Your dollar buys less. CPI measures this by tracking a basket of common goods. It's caused by too much money chasing too few goods, demand pull, rising production costs, cost push, and self-fulfilling expectations. Nominal means the actual number. Real means adjusted for inflation. Real is what matters. Your savings lose purchasing power during inflation if they're not growing faster than the inflation rate. Inflation redistributes. It helps debtors and asset owners, hurts cash holders and fixed income earners. Moderate inflation, about 2%, is the goal. Hyperinflation breaks economies. Deflation has its own problems. The Fed controls inflation mainly through interest rates. Raise them to slow inflation, lower them to stimulate. You can respond by not holding excess cash, understanding real returns, negotiating wages, and diversifying assets. The $6 drink isn't an accident, it's a system. And now you understand it. If this video saved you from nodding along confused at the most recent news segment about the Fed, hit subscribe. It costs you nothing, which, at current inflation rates, is the best deal left.